Welcome back to the show, everybody. I am with Anthony Gilbert of Melt Pizza Company, and we're going to talk about a number of things today. I'm excited because I've known this guy for quite some time. I've been paying attention to his journey from, pop-up to brick and mortar, and he's going to share with us some of his story, how to work with dough from a restaurant perspective, because you got to be able to adapt your dough to your needs. And maybe if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about food photography. Anthony, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Idra.
Thanks for being here. There's this one question that I always start off the show with. There's no right or wrong answer. What's good dough?
What's good dough? Man, good dough for me is something that takes quality time, takes detail, and takes a little bit or a lot of love to get it to where you want it to be.
Love is such an important recipe in this thing. Some people call it love, some people call it passion. Where did this love for food or pizza, begin in your life? How did you get this appreciation for it?
Yeah, so I've had a love for food pretty much my whole life. I remember, learn how to make scrambled eggs when I was like 3-4 years old. And I've always been someone that's been able to cook. I got in my first kitchen when I was 14 as a dishwasher. And then I worked my way up by 15 to be a cook. And I cooked professionally for almost 10 years. And so I did that for a long time, pursued some other things, and then never stopped cooking. But I think I really fell in love with food again when the pandemic hit and the world shut down, and all I could really do was sit at home and go to the grocery store. That's all anyone was able to do. So I just started cooking 3 huge meals a day, every single day of the week, because I didn't have a job. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything other than just that. So I fell back in love in a huge way with food because of that. And that's where I discovered pizza as well, because it's something I had never made before March 2020, believe it or not.
What got you to dabble into it? I mean, it can be, from an outsider's perspective, such a random food. It could have been pho, it could have been bao, it could have been chicken biryani. Why pizza?
I don't know. I think it's something that I made in the first week or two. It was I had all this stuff to make dough, and I had never made dough because I was well, you need time to do it right. And I had a very busy schedule and I never had time. Well, all of a sudden, all I had was time in the world. So I made my first pizza and it was awful. And it bugged the hell out of me to the point that I was so frustrated and I had to figure out how to make it work, how to make it better. And that just got me down a huge rabbit hole for, months and months and months. I started making pizza once a week, and it got better and better each week, but it was definitely not very good.
What was so awful about that first one? Maybe describe it a little bit more.
I think the dough, I don't even know how it was proofed. I don't know if I mixed it right. I think I let it sit for a day and a half in the fridge, but I cooked it, in my little home oven. I don't even think I had a steel. I might have cooked it on a sheet pan. It wasn't brown at all. It was so far away from what I'm able to do now. It's kind of funny.
It's hilarious because I remember my first pizza and I served it to friends. If you're listening to this podcast, for the audience, by the way, don't serve your first pizza to your friends, expecting them to, give you a round of applause and all the accolades, because my first pizza, I butchered it. There was a whole bunch of flour underneath the pizza and it was caked on. It was so gross.
Yep. Probably very similar to my experience. Yep. Absolutely.
So you just kept at it. You went down the rabbit hole. And was your first pizza the style of pizza that you're making today?
No, my first pizza was New York style. What I wanted to be a traditional New York, a round pie. I could only fit 14 inches in the oven. I have a teeny oven at home. So no, it was not a Detroit at all.
Gotcha. One of the questions that I had earlier, before we started talking about pizza, was what were you doing after you left cooking?
So I was a cook for a while at a restaurant in my hometown, and then it was also attached to a liquor store. So I went on to do both for a while. I cooked and I learned the liquor side, the liquor industry. And then I left the kitchen to manage that liquor store connected to it. And then I left that industry altogether in 2015, I think, to go on to be a professional photographer. So I started as a wedding photographer and event photographer, like school photos and stuff like that, as well as weddings. And I actually moved into architectural photography for about 3-4 years professionally. And then I did it one more year after the pandemic hit.
And so in that time you were doing photography, were you even thinking about food? Was there something like itching in the back of your mind saying, hey, you should be doing food? Or were you totally content, doing photography for the rest of your life?
I was content. I was very happy. I had a good career. I worked for a very, very talented business owner. I was right under him. I got to see the world. I got to travel. I got to do really cool stuff. And I loved my job, and I don't have any issue with it. It was just kind of like when the pandemic hit, it kind of made me reevaluate life and maybe what I was doing. And it wasn't that I didn't love my job, but I think it was like, I think I wanted to do something for myself that I was maybe too scared to do before, or maybe it just made me realize that like life is kind of short and I'm young now and I have this ambition to do certain things, and why not try? And if you fail, you fail. But I wanted to pursue, I guess, opening a restaurant and running a food concept. And so that's what kind of gave me the courage and the ambition to pursue that.
It seems like you had experience in both food and photography. How did you decide that you were going to land on one or the other in terms of starting your business? Because I could have seen you maybe starting your own architectural photography firm or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's good conversation. That's stuff that I chatted very close with my wife and my employer and stuff. And I was just kind of at a spot where I loved photography, but I did not love it like how I loved food. And I didn't really have an interest to go do my own architectural photography or run my wedding photography business into something larger. I just didn't have the fire and the passion for it behind the end product like I did for food. So it was kind of just like, I was happy doing what I was doing and I loved it. But at the end of the day, it didn't captivate me enough to take it to that next level. So it just didn't seem worth doing long term.
Are you looking to make the most delicious pizza? Well, listen up, because I have an important message for you. A lot of pizza makers are using the wrong type of olive oil for their dough. Let me explain. Using commodity olive oil can have a detriment to your pizza, and I'm talking about a huge one. Whether it's rancidity or a nasty smell, you don't want that on your masterpiece. Say goodbye to commodity oil and say hello to Cordo olive oil. Cordo olive oil is the ultimate choice for pizza makers like us. Why? Because they use quality olives, they harvest it at their peak, and they store it securely so that when you purchase the olive oil, it is fresh. Cordo olive oil is the ultimate choice for pizza makers like us because they pick their olives at their peak, they harvest it, and they secure it in a safe way. That way, it's ready for you when you make your purchase. The choice is yours. Do you want an explosion of flavor, or do you want that nasty, bitter taste on top of your pizza or in your dough? Anytime you need some Cordo olive oil, use the link in the show notes or DM me and I'll send you that link personally. I appreciate you for supporting me and my show sponsors. So you make the decision in the pandemic to say, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to get better at pizza making. I'm going to find my style of pizza. Then what happened?
So I started doing pizzas. I started presenting them. I started showing them finally to my friends. I didn't do that for 4, 5, 6 months. So once I was confident enough to share it, then I started doing that. And then that got me to March of 2021. And that's when I formed the brand Melt Pizza Company. I made an Instagram, I made a Facebook, I made it a formal business. And I just started to grow it from literally nothing. So I started it was literally just once a month. I would make 20, 30 pizzas and I would just give them away to friends and family just out of my house. It's all I could do in like a 4 or 5 hour period. I would do it once a month on a Saturday. And we did that for a couple months until I was approached by a restaurateur in my hometown about the opportunity to look at maybe ghost kitchening. He had a cocktail lounge that was closed Mondays and Tuesdays. And so he had been like, I've seen your product. It looks very captivating. I think there's a market for it. Obviously you need a place to do this properly, legally, safely, all that kind of stuff. So he was like, how about you take this? If you want, you can have this opportunity to use this space while it's closed. And so that's where we started the ghost kitchen or the pop-up aspect of this business. And we started that November 1st, 2021. And I pursued that for, it was about 10, 11 months. And I fully quit my job New Year's Eve of 2021. We started the pop-ups. I knew this was getting serious. I knew that the only end to this was creating a restaurant. This was more than just a hobby. This was more than just something fun to do on, one Saturday a month. So I took it serious and I quit my job and I put everything into the business and everything I could to get it to where I'm now sitting today.
And where are you sitting today for the listeners who are just on audio?
Yeah, so I am sitting in my first brick and mortar restaurant. Like I said, we did the pop-ups for about 10, 11 months. And then I got approached about moving into a space in an adjacent town to my hometown, just 10 minutes up the river here. It's a really beautiful tourist town. We're right in this wonderful downtown strip of Minnesota, right on the river.
Where exactly in Minnesota?
We're in Stillwater, Minnesota, about 20 minutes outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul. I was given this opportunity to move in here. I took the space over January 1st of this year, and then we fully opened February 20th of this year. So coming up on a little over 3 months now, we've been open.
From my understanding, this is pretty much a family business, right? Part of your story is you have a sister who's also in the industry and you said, hey, let's do this. Is that kind of how it worked?
Yeah, I would not be here, and this business would not be here without my sister, Alyssa. She is the foundation of the backbone of the whole dough program and doing all of our dough and all that kind of infrastructure. She was a baker for about a year and a half during the pandemic. And then she left that job to start working with me in the pop-ups. She did not quit her job. She still had other jobs, but she was with me through every stage of the pop-ups to the getting ready to now where we are now. She works full time with me and she's a partner with me on this. And yeah, so it's very much me and her kind of conquering this thing right now.
Nice. And where you're at in your restaurant, your concept is Detroit style pizza with Filipino comfort food. That's unique to me. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's Detroit style pizza first for anyone that is coming in, and that's kind of the way that it's kind of just shaken out for our reputation. But I wanted to start bringing in pieces of my Filipino heritage very early on. We have some staples on our menu like lumpias, like adobo chicken wings. I just added a tocino pork belly dan noodle dish earlier this week. Yeah, we have some really cool Filipino forward dishes alongside our pizzas, and then also alongside some more traditional kind of like Italian type fare, like spaghetti meatballs. We do a spicy vodka rigatoni, fried mozzarella. So it's kind of an eclectic menu, but having that Asian influence, I think, is what's even sets us further apart from what already sets us apart in our style of pizza.
I always wonder how eclectic restaurants do, especially when it comes to just like having a wide range of a menu. And do your customers think, whoa, this is cool? Or do you feel that some of them are thinking, hey, this is a bit too much? What are your thoughts?
I think in general, people love it. I'm able to gather that just kind of looking at the data of what we're selling. And my best selling appetizers are all of the Asian inspired ones. The feedback we get are really cool. I'll look out and sometimes I have like whole groups or whole families of people that I can tell are Asian or Filipino, and they're ordering just every single one of the Asian dishes and not even getting pizza. That's cool to see. That's not something that I thought would be the outcome of this, but it seems very well received. We don't have like a huge, crazy large menu. I think that's where you run into trouble. Trying to be too eclectic, or what's the phrase? You try to appease everyone, you appease no one. We're trying to be more pointed in our flair.
I support that. How many items do you have ballpark, and what do you consider for someone who's designing their menu for their first time to be too much, too many items?
One thing, I don't know if this is a rule, this is just what I've stuck to, is I like my food menu to be one page. So it's a 8.5 by 11, one single page. We launched with 6 appetizers, 3 salads, 5 pastas, and 9 or 10 pizza flavors. We just started a new menu on Monday. I think I added 2 more apps, and I actually got rid of 1 pizza, and I actually got rid of and replaced 3 pasta dishes. So I still kept it very lean, mean, and just kind of down to the core stuff, just to help with the volume and the demand and just keep food costs down, keep waste down, and, put out the best food we can in as short of a period of time as possible.
I appreciate that. The one page rule is nice because as a consumer, when I go to a restaurant, I am kind of irritated when I see too many options because I get that I already have enough decision fatigue where I'm making too many choices every day. I don't need to spend 30 minutes trying to figure out what I want just to get my food. If you're doing something great, let me know what it is and let me order that.
Yeah, every place can't be a Cheesecake Factory.
Before we take a break here and transition on to our next topic, make sure to tune into that episode where we're going to talk about Anthony's pizza process, the dough, the formula, the toppings, and dive in a little bit more. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with on this part about your restaurant, your family, the inspiration that you got, the journey that you've been through, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, going for this has probably been one of the most scary but yet rewarding experiences of my life. And I would tell anyone, if you have any bit of a desire to go for something bigger than what you're doing or try something that you don't think you can actually do, like just go for it. And what's the worst that happens? You fail. You'll always be wondering if you could have done it. And sometimes you just need to go for things and see what happens. And that's the biggest thing that I always learned from this situation is 2 years ago, I don't think I told my wife I want to have a restaurant someday and everyone thinks that's silly. And then now here I am. And it's crazy what you can do if you actually try. That's, I feel like, a good life lesson.
That's a great life lesson. And maybe go one level down under that layer and just talk about what helped you push through, because it's not an easy decision, right? If it was an easy decision, more people would do it. A lot of people have that desire. A lot of people are thinking about it. What got you through?
Just never stop. If you believe in what you're doing and you believe that you can get to where you want to be, then follow that instinct and just keep pushing through, because it's likely going to pay off for you if you do it.
Beautiful. All right. Everyone, let's check back in part 2 with Anthony. We're going to do a deep dive on the dough process, Detroit style pizza, all of that. Talk to y'all soon. Are you the type of listener that wants more content? Do you have suggestions for the type of content that's being made? Maybe you're the type of person who wants to support me as a creator. Well, I'm here to announce that I have started a Patreon. A number of you have been asking about this ever since I started podcasting in 2020. And I'm finally committing to the process of creating a Patreon. I want to create some episodes that are raw, unedited, give my thoughts. I also want to provide bonus content from the episodes that didn't make the final cut. And finally, I want to just have open communication with the listeners. And I promise that if you reach out to me via the Patreon, I'll get back to you as soon as possible, because I know you're going the extra mile to support me, and therefore I'll go the extra mile to support you. So whether you're interested in more content from me or you just want to support the team over at What's Good Dough, check out the link to my Patreon in the show notes. I'd greatly appreciate it if you signed up. Thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you for listening to the What's Good Dough podcast. Make sure to check out the show notes where you'll find links to my Patreon, email list, and the links to all my sponsors. You'll also find the contact info for today's guest too. Before we sign off today, I'd love it if you could support me by rating and reviewing this show. It helps so much when it comes to growing the show. Also, please share this episode with a friend, family member, or fellow pizza baker, especially if you think it'll add value to their lives. You can copy the link to this podcast and send it on over to them, or you can even share it via social media. If you do that, please tag me. I'd greatly appreciate it. Last but not least, I'd love it if you subscribe to the show. That way you can get notified anytime there's a new podcast. I appreciate you for listening. I love you. Till next time. Peace. Hey, home pizza makers. What's good, dough? It's time for you and me to partner up together and make pizzas for good. How do we do that? You and I will be doing pizza parties nationwide to raise money for Slice Out Hunger. And yes, it is starting now. So if you want to be a part of my team and make pizzas for good, you can register to be a part of Team What's Good Dough. And yes, it is welcome to all bakers, whether you're just starting off or you're a seasoned pop-up pro. Let's make pizza for good together.